We made it to the end of 2019, and this is Sonia from An Enthusiastic Reader, and this is my recap of the best books I read in 2019. I've divided this up into two different sections. The first is the backlist, anything that was published before 2019, and then I have a list of books that I really loved that were published in 2019. So I'm starting with the backlist, and I did want to say I'm not going to talk too much about the books themselves. I've either talked about them in previous videos, and I'm also going to send you a link to my blog that actually has the write-up of what I thought about every book that I published on Facebook for my friends and family that I do every year. And so this video is being kind of adapted from that write-up that I already did. First book on the backlist is from 2018, so it's not that old, and it's Curtis Sittenfeld's You Think It, I'll Say It. This is a collection of short stories about relationships in the modern age. The characters are often very flawed, and Sittenfeld's very kind of hard on her characters, but she also humanizes them. I loved every story in the collection. It really worked for me, and so it's on the list. Next is The Mountain Lion by Jean Stafford. This is a book about two children, their siblings, brother and sister. It's about their bond and their psychology and the psychological warfare and love that goes between the two children as they're put into various circumstances. And this was such a great book. I love this book. I wish more people would read it, but it really grabbed me and I could not put it down until I was done. Next, we have The Blackwater Lighthouse by Colm Tóibín, and this is the story of a sister and brother. The brother is dying of AIDS, and the sister has been estranged from the family, and this is about the family getting back together as he is dying. It's really tender, lovely. Tóibín is one of my all-time favorite writers. I think I've read many of his list. I think there are a few that I still haven't gotten to yet, but I would read anything he writes. He's one of my favorites. So this was an older book, and yeah, it really touched me. Mad Boy, An Account of Henry Phipps in the War of 1812 by Nick Arvin. This is the story of a young, I think maybe 10 or 11-year-old boy named Henry Phipps. His mother dies at the very beginning when a cow falls on her head through the sod of their shanty. They live in a sod house, and a cow falls on her head. It's not funny, but there are many funny things that happen in this novel as he tries to reunite with his brother and figure out what to do with his mother. And there are lots of odd and eccentric characters. There's a lot of weird situations. And most of all, Henry is kind of an angry, hilarious character. And I think a lot of you would really like it if you would give it a try. It's from Europa. Next on the list is Accordion Crimes by Annie Proulx. This is another very madcap, hilarious novel about, not everything in it is hilarious, obviously, but it's about the life of an accordion. And that sounds like a creative writing exercise or something, but it's anything but. It's really all about America. It's about the immigration story in America through the life of this accordion. It's made in Italy. It makes its way to America, and then you get to see all these various immigrant groups as they own the accordion and they play their own music through it. There are so many funny stories. She is not easy on her characters, and she is not sentimental about her characters. So you're not in it to get good feelings from the lives of these characters. They're often very tragic and suddenly cut short. Next on my list is Severance by Ling Ma. This is a zombie apocalypse story I really liked. Obviously, it's on the list. I liked it, but the zombies aren't like as dangerous and treacherous as the zombies that we see on television, and it's more about a metaphor for the way we live our lives now, and why do we live our lives the way we live them. It makes you question a lot of things about just our society and what we value and our relationships. Now we have The Known World by Edward P. Jones. I did this as a buddy read with a lot of wonderful booktubers. This is the story of a character named Henry who is African American, and he also owns slaves himself. And it's about the perversion of slavery, the perversion of what happens when you own other people, and what it does to you and what it does to them, and how it stains society no matter who is doing the owning. And there's so much in this book, I can't even really describe it. You can go back and see my review, which I will link below if you're interested. But better than that, you should just pick up the book and read it for yourself. We have The Vagrants by Yi-Yoon Lee, and this is the story of an execution it's in like the late 1970s during the Cultural Revolution, or just past the Cultural Revolution in China. And it's about a small province. It's about the lives of all the people in the province and what happens when this woman, who had actually been very instrumental in the Cultural Revolution and had shamed and harmed and maybe even killed many people in the village in trying to purify the culture, she changes her mind, and when she rebels against the government, she is slated for execution. And what this is about is, the waves that emanate from this act of violence from the state against the people, her parents, her friends, anyone who's associated in any way with this revolutionary act that she took. And it definitely one of the very best books I've ever read. Next we have We Take on China, also the Tiananmen Square Massacre. It's about the Cultural Revolution and the cleansing of a music conservatory school. It's called Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeline Tien. I know this is one of Sean's, the Book Maniac's, favorite books, and I wanted to read it because he loved it so much, and it was amazing. It totally lived up to his praise of the book. It killed me. There are parts in here that just, you care about these characters and these families and their problems and the way that they have to kind of shut their identities down in order to conform and not be killed in the Cultural Revolution. It's an amazing book. The final book I have on my backlist, best reads of 2019, is When Will There Be Good News by Kate Atkinson. This is the third in the Jackson Brodie mystery series. To me, it was the best of all the books I read in the series, which I've read all of them. And Jackson is kind of adrift, but more important than Jackson's story is actually the other protagonist of this particular mystery is a teenager who is working to solve a mystery on her own, and she ends up converging with Jackson through a tragedy, and they team up. But I loved everything about this particular part of the Jackson Brodie mystery. Now we're going to get to the books from 2019 that I read in 2019. I'm not ranking these. I think there are only 8 of them, but each one did something different to distinguish itself and get put on the list. And the first one I am putting on the list is Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman. This is 1,060 pages of grief, anxiety, and pure love. And the book meant a lot to me, and I read all the way through it. There is a plot, even though it's not apparent for several hundred pages in, but I loved being a part of the narrator's thoughts, and I felt my heart pounding with her heart pounding for a lot of it. So yeah, that's all I'll say. It's a great book. Now I have The Topeka School by Ben Lerner. I thought this was an amazing indictment of the way that the right-wing politics have infiltrated themselves in through our language, in through the way we treat women. And yeah, so it's all of those things, but it's also the story of a family, and it's the story of how an institution could shape the psyche of a child whose parents are teachers in this psychiatric institute. You're really getting into the hearts and the minds of each of the characters. It's written in multi-perspective, and it takes everything that happened in the book Ohio, just socioeconomic disparity. I mean, it has everything in it in this one fantastic novel. The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. This is another book about a brother and sister. I seem to be very drawn to these books about siblings this year. Their father buys a house as a grand gesture to their mother, and their mother leaves their father, cannot handle that, and so he remarries. And what happens after he dies, and the ownership of the house, the pull that that house has on them, and their feelings of belonging to a family. And it's mostly about the relationship between the brother and sister as they age, and they find other relationships too. So Ann Patchett really knows how to create characters that you care about, and this book is no exception. Next is Fleischman is in Trouble by Tappy Broadness or Ackner. This is the raunchy madcap story of a divorce on its surface, and we're supposed to really identify with the protagonist. But it ends up being something completely different than what the novel sets out to be, and that's what worth waiting for. So it's a novel about the power dynamics between men and women in marriage. Very good. The rest of my books are nonfiction. The first is I Like to Watch, Arguing My Way Through the TV Revolution by Emily Nussbaum. I am a very avid television watcher. I would be ashamed to tell you how many shows I watched this year. My husband and I watch a ton of television. I love television. It's a big, huge part of my cultural awareness. And so these essays are collected from Emily Nussbaum's New Yorker column. I think she's leaving as the New Yorker television columnist after she takes a hiatus and someone else is taking over. But I really she has her own opinions about television. She does not care if you agree with her or not. She is kind of unabashedly negative about certain things, but she also sees the world through a lens that I really like. So there's one key essay in this book that she wrote particularly for the book, and it's about the watching television in light of the Me Too movement. I thought it was fantastic essay that really brought to light a lot of issues and a lot about how we deal with people who might be good artists but are also very toxic people. So that was great. And a graphic novel it's not a graphic novel, a graphic memoir called Good Talk, A Memoir and Conversations by Mira Jacob. This is about race and identity in Trump's America. How you explain to children what's happening, how you deal with in-laws who are Trump supporters but yet claim to love you too, and cannot explain how their idolation of someone who hates you doesn't reflect back on you. It's really good. I love the art style. I talked about this more in another video, but it was really good. And the last book I have on the list is Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland by Patrick Radden Keefe. This is a nonfiction account of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. If you don't know anything about the Troubles in Northern Ireland, this is a very good introduction to all the people who were involved in this sectarian violence and war between Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland, and how it's almost a cult because any deviance or betrayal could get you a death sentence from the IRA. I learned a lot about it. I just wasn't really that keen or aware of the politics of the time, and it was a good read, very well written, and I learned a lot. That's my list for 2019. Please tell me in the comments if you agree or disagree, I guess. And I'm watching other videos and I'm really enjoying the end of the year wrap-ups. So that's it. And 2020 is just around the bend, and we will get started with a new year, a new clean slate. And I look forward to talking more about what I read. So happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.